I'm just waiting to see if he started the recording. Waiting to see if he started the recording. Thank you. Thank you. That helped. That helped. I look like Michelle Obama. That's pretty awesome. You might have had one in that room. Is that us? Hi, everyone. I'm glad you came out tonight. So this is called LEX Talk, and the purpose of LEX Talk is to invite speakers in the legal community to come and have open conversations with law students and whoever's here to listen. Tonight we have President of the Massachusetts Bar Association, Attorney Robert Harnais, and he's here to talk about the MBA as well as advice for law students and a little about himself as well. So if we could start, could you maybe tell us a little about how you got into law?
All right. Well, I'll tell you, it was years, I had no idea what I was going to do. And many, many years ago, I went on a date, and I went to see a movie called Breaking Morant. And nobody probably knows what that movie is. But I actually saw the movie, and I fell in love. Not with the date, but with the law at that point. And I said, I'm going to... yeah, she dumped me, by the way. But anyways, I'll get her. No, I'm only kidding. And I said, that's what I want to be. I want to be a lawyer. It was a movie with regards to the Boer War, where a lawyer had to defend three individuals from the British Army, Australian Army. I'm sorry, and he lost, but the trial was rigged. And I said, that's something I want to do. I want to take on the fight. And from that point on, I said, that's what I want to be. I want to be a lawyer. The only problem I had is I had no idea how to do it. My family's from Argentina, so going to school wasn't a major thing. Odds, you had to go to work. So what we did is I started college, and then I started hanging around this court, Quincy District Court. It's a court right in the city of Quincy, and I started hanging around there every day. I'd go to UMass. I'd get out of school at noontime. I'd go hang around the courthouse. And then at 5 o'clock, I worked as a cook in a restaurant down the street. So finally what happened, this gentleman one day came out to me and said, we see you here, why are you here? And I said, I want to be a lawyer, I just don't know how to do it. And I just like watching. And the people at Quincy Court took me under their wing, and they let me in there.
What was that like working in Quincy District Court?
It was a great experience. I'll tell you, it was a great experience for two reasons. Number one is the fact that I learned a lot. I learned a lot about how the clerk's office works, how the probation department worked. But it was also a great experience is realizing that we need mentors in life. These people didn't know me from a hole in the wall, and yet they saw that I wanted to be a lawyer bad. And so they took me under their wing. And in that whole experience, first I started off working at their clerk's office, volunteering, mind you. I wasn't getting paid, but I'd go there every day. I'd get there at 1, I'd work there till 4. Volunteering, then I go to my job at 5. And then as things opened up, I was able to get a job there, and I learned a lot. I ran one of the first Earn It programs in the state where people on probation were able to earn. I was a community work service, would take them out. We first caught in the state to run the intensive probation was where I'd be the curfew officer, so I literally go to people's houses to make sure they were in at their curfew. But one of the most interesting things was I ran the first electronic bracelet program in the state.
What's that?
That is when you're on probation, you violate, say, but short of incarceration, what they do, they attach a bracelet on your ankle. Then that bracelet monitors what time you come home in a curfew. It's much more advanced than it was when I was doing it back in the 80s. Now there's voice recognition, but back then it was an instrument around approximately 6 inches big, and it gets riveted to your ankle, and it tells what time you came in, what time you left, and It was a great program to run. The worst thing about that program was I had to wear it for the first month myself. So my boss knew what time I was getting home every night and stuff. So, but it was, but I'll tell you, it was very interesting. It was a very interesting program. And it showed how, it taught me how you have to think out of the box when it comes out to the law and especially the criminal justice world.
What was it like going, so you went to school
Yes.
and you worked the Quincy District
Yes.
Court. What was that like?
Well, you know, as after I graduated college, it was the people of Quincy District Court, the two gentlemen, more particularly Larry Falvey and Kevin Foley. Kevin's the one that took me under his wing and got me involved in the court, and Larry Falvey, who just recently passed, is the gentleman that got me to law school. So by that time, I'd gotten a job full-time working at the Quincy District Court, and I go to school. I go to law school nights. So I mean, it was a lot. But I tell you, and there was some doubts at times. At certain times, you wanted to know if you're doing the right thing. I love the law. I love the courthouse. I love the courtroom. I love doing the research. But it was a burden at times.
Yeah.
You know.
What do you think is probably an obstacle for law students who, whether they're working or not, what do you think is maybe one of the biggest obstacles they face?
I'll tell you, one of my biggest obstacles was me. My second year of law school, it's nights, I wasn't sure what I was doing, so I ran withdrawing. My second year, a quarter way through my second year, and within 72 hours of withdrawing, I realized that was the biggest mistake I made in my life. I hated the fact I withdrew. So I think one of the biggest obstacles is yourselves. You know, you find your desire. The second biggest obstacle is the fear you have. And if somebody had to turn to me and say, listen, when you graduate law school, what do you do? How do you know, what are your steps? What are your game plans? I always tell people, I don't know. I know that you just do it. You love it, you do it, you find a way to do it. You know, and that's the most important thing. I will tell you again, I didn't grow up in a family that had any connections with the law. We had no lawyers. My father was a laborer. But I had the desire, so I'd knock on doors. Every chance I got, I'd make myself known. I'd knock on doors, introduce myself to people.
You mentioned a minute ago about mentors. I think you mentioned two of them.
Yeah.
What impact did mentoring have on you as a law student?
Okay. Well, as a law student, I'll tell you, I would say I did not have the best experience growing up. I can't lie to people and say that I was clean as a whistle. I wasn't. I got myself in a lot of jackpots. And it wasn't for the people around me that kept me in the straight path. And, you know, I fumbled a lot. I tripped up a lot, but the people around me, especially those two gentlemen, and again, they both passed away, unfortunately, but they became very good friends. They would help me at the times where I was taking a left instead of a right. They helped me. They pushed me more to the center. And that was important. That's what I needed. Everybody needs their own thing. I needed someone to keep me on the right path, and they were there for me. And the funny story is about Larry was when I was in law school. I was going to law school nights, working at Quincy District Court, and I had my own apartment. I used to have to hide my car if I skipped school because he'd find out the next day just to ask me how come I didn't go to school. So they were on me when I started going to the left instead of right. They'd be all over me.
Oh, that's nice. Now, what was law school like in general for you?
Again, one of the things with law school is college wasn't an important thing within my family. We had to go, work was important. So it was a huge adjustment for me. I will tell you that high school didn't prepare me for the college I went to, and the college didn't prepare me for the law school I went to. So every step of the way, it was a big adjustment for me. But I will tell you that in law school, I enjoyed, it's different now because now you have all computers, but I enjoyed the books. I enjoyed doing the research. So that helped me through it. But again, it was hard for me. That's why my second year, a quarter of the way through my second year, I wasn't sure if I could do it, so I withdrew.
And now going back to, say, when you finished law school and you're entering practice, what was that transition period like? We have a lot of, 3Ls, 4Ls graduating students who are about to go out there. And
It's scary. I'll tell you that the day I graduated, in my mind, I knew everything. And then to this day, I can tell you I know nothing. But I thought I knew everything, so I thought I was going to light the world on fire. And it doesn't happen that way, you know. For me, I was lucky enough to get a job with a person. But I will tell you that within 6 months of working for that individual, I just knew it wasn't right for me. Number one, first I realized I couldn't work for anybody. I had to work on my own. And two, being Hispanic, it was in the Jamaica Plain area in Boston, which is largely a Hispanic community. And I learned out there, unfortunately, there were a lot of predator lawyers that they work in communities and suck the life out of the community. And that's not the law I want to practice. So after probably 4 or 5 months, I realized, number one, I don't want to work for anybody. Number two, I don't want to, at the end of the day, feel dirty.
Yeah.
You know, and we had spoken about the fact there were many lawyers that have the mill type of work where you slip and fall, give me a call, you know, and that's not the law. That's not the law I want to practice, nor the law I want to deal with. It just brought down and compromised the integrity of what our profession is.
Speaking of our profession, I know you're involved with, and you're maybe very passionate about civility.
Yeah.
And for those of us who weren't here last week, the MBA had a panel on civility. Can you talk a little about that, maybe why we should be interested in it, what's important about it?
You know, one of the first things I talked about when I became president of the MassBar is that I got to go back to when I first started hanging around the Quincy Court. I used to look at these lawyers and just admire them and just say, you know, they were just real, true lawyers. They would argue the law, and then I'd see them in the hallway laughing and talking and being friendly with each other. And that's changed. That's changed. I see lawyers that make personal attacks on each other. I see lawyers that rather attack another lawyer than attack the case or the facts of the case. I see lawyers have disrespect to the courts. And these are minor little things that people say it's not a big deal, but it is. And when you graduate from law school and you pass the bar, you have an incredible responsibility to uphold the integrity of what we all represent here. We represent a system that started way before us, and we hope it's going to end way, way after us. But during the course of that, I tell young people this, and I tell young lawyers this. If you want to get into a business, open a variety store. If you want to be a professional, be a lawyer. Big difference. It's not a business. It's a profession. You got to treat it as that. And I started this committee because, and we go around speaking to law schools, because I see it lacks the professionalism it needs and it requires. As lawyers, we walk into a courtroom, we set the tenor of what the people out there see. So when they walk into a courtroom, they see the lawyers acting like they're acting. And it's funny, we just had a meeting in another law school with a bunch of judges, and one judge says they act childish. You know, their biggest argument is about the foolishness they do among each other. You know, they don't treat each other with respect. And he sit there and he say, you know, I don't want people to come into a courtroom and seeing lawyers act like that with each other. I want to see them come into a courtroom and be in awe of the power that's in there and the professionalism in there. That's why I started it. I've seen it decline in many years. You know, and I know you can, but I've never been in favor of advertising. I've never been in favor of the commercial that's on during the day, slip and fall, give us a call, we'll get you your money. You know, that's not what it's about. You know, we represent the Constitution. We represent an institution that people have died for. And none of them figured it was going to turn into the business that it is. And that's what I feel sad about.
Yeah. What do you think law students should keep in mind in terms of civility?
It's a profession. First of all, you're not going to go change the world. You know, I see a lot of young people graduate law school becoming ADAs and thinking the fact that, you know, the lawyer is the criminal. It's not like that. We're here representing our clients. Go out there, respect the fact that let me go back on that. You graduate law school, you think you know it all, but you don't. You're not going to change the world, but what you are going to do is you're going to make a difference out there. And you do it with professionalism. You're not going to cut corners. You're not going to take on cases that you can't take. The problem is that some students are getting out of law school a lot of debt, and what they're doing is taking on cases that they probably shouldn't take, and they're not grabbing a mentor right away. And what happens is this: when you take on a case you shouldn't be taking because you're too new at this, The reality is you're doing the profession, you're doing the client a disservice. So that's one thing I emphasize young lawyers. Before you take on a case, take on a mentor. It's important. And make sure the mentor fits right with you. I'll tell you, when I started practicing law, I met my third mentor, and his name was Peter. And I will tell you this: I am the lawyer I am the father I am the man I am because of Peter. And I owe him my career. I owe him anything good in my life because he took me under his wing, and when I was biting off more than I could chew, he defended me out there, but he'd come into the office and scold me, and he watched out for me, and he helped me a lot. So I wouldn't be where I am today in president of MassBar but for Peter.
In terms of mentoring, some students are very shy and maybe they don't have the most comfortable feeling just approaching someone they don't know. What kind of creative ways are there for students, or even new attorneys to find mentors? How does that work in a practical sense?
I think in the course of practicing out there, you're going to run into other lawyers, and you're going to see which lawyers care. I know this. I've been practicing now 26 years, and if I see a young lawyer making a mistake or maybe not, I'll approach that young lawyer, and I'll always make myself available. I think it's something you can't plan. You can't go ask someone to be my mentor. It happens. You find them. And I'll tell you, there's a lot of lawyers out there that would do it for you. A lot of lawyers. It's funny how, in the course of practicing, I'll tell you a story. I had a very, very bitter case with a lawyer many years ago. It was a knockout, drag-out case. It went on. It went on for a year, and I will tell you, my stomach being knots every time we had an issue. And the case ended. And approximately 3 years later, out of the clear blue, I get a phone call from this lawyer. And he called me up to say that he developed cancer, and he wanted someone to help him run his office. And he saw the way we fought, but it was clean, but it was nasty, but it was all the rules. He thought I'd be a good person to run his office. Wow. I ran his office till he died. I didn't work for him, but I would go to his office in the morning, make sure all the lawyers are doing their job and go where they're going, and I go back at nighttime and make sure everything's all set. Times I have my own practice. Wow. During the course, and I didn't plan it. I thought the guy hated me, but during the course of you practicing, people will look at you and they'll see what who you are and what you're about, and they're willing to help you. Just, a lot of young lawyers walk out there with the chips on their shoulders. Knock it off. Don't do it. It's not worth it. You go there and understand you are going to be a babe in the woods, and there are going to be people that are going to take care of you. Just make sure you find the right mentor, that's all.
Now, looking back, you said you've been in practice, about 26 years or so?
Yes.
What would you say is the most positive thing that you've seen in terms of a change or progression in the law, or at least in the profession, maybe?
I'm trying to think what's the best thing I've seen. I love arguing in courts. I see the shift in the courts at times. I can't offhand tell you what's the best thing I've seen. I will tell you the best experiences I've had, and those are my bottom right-hand drawer and the top right-hand drawer, my credenza, which is all the thank you cards. And when you could anybody can write a check. Not that they do, because you have to chase it for the money, but they could write a check and they'll pay you. But when someone takes time to thank you for helping them, that is probably, as a lawyer, that's the best satisfaction I have. And my bottom right-hand drawer, my desk, and my top right-hand drawer, my credenza is full of thank you cards. I keep every single one because that person took the time to thank me, and that person, I made an impact on that person. And that is probably one of the best things I feel as being a lawyer. Mm. And I just recently gave a talk in something called the TAM Mentoring Group, and I was asked, what do you want people to think? When I'm long gone, which I don't want to rush, but when I'm long gone, I don't want. Yeah, exactly. I think if somebody walks up to my kids and says, "Hey, your old man made a lot of money," they'll say, "Yeah." But I think if they walked up to my kids and said, "Your old man was a good guy. He helped me out a lot, and helped my family," I think they'll be proud of me.
Yeah.
And I think that's a legacy I would like to leave.
That's nice. Just to let everyone know, this is more of an open discussion, so if anyone has any questions, let me know, and we'll hand you the mic. Another thing is, law students, we all come into law school in this experience with different goals, with different mindsets, and some of us, we have passions, and we get here and we say, okay, this is my passion, somehow I've got to use this law degree to get there. Is there anything that you're passionate about that you were able to then harness and use being an attorney to move forward on?
My wife will tell you I like to argue. So I
had no idea.
She'll tell you that. But I like fighting. I like sticking up for someone. I've always felt I like fighting for the underdog, and that's always been something since I was a kid I like to do. So, I have a passion for being in the courtroom. I love it. It just the feeling of being in a courtroom and having a trial, and it's just good. Now, I don't do a lot of civil. Mm-hmm. I do a lot of criminal, and I'll tell you why. In criminal court, you fight about someone's liberty, someone's rights, someone's freedom. And you tend to get along with people, and you tend to get along with the prosecutor. You do. It's a business. With civil, I'm fighting about money. Nobody likes each other, and that's a shame. And that's the worst thing. The civil law is the most uncivil law you can imagine. You see lawyers just bickering and fighting because it's all about the money. Where you see DAs and you have heavy-duty criminal cases, and you and the DA get along because the facts are the facts, and it's not personal. So it's you're going to do it, and. The bit with money, it's all about the civil case. It's all about the money, and if any of you ever take an opportunity to go into a courtroom, and you first go into the criminal court, fighting for people's liberties, rights, maybe wrongful prosecution, whatever, and you see the DAs and the attorneys all talking, and then there's another day walk into the civil court, into a civil motion session, and you see nobody speaking. And everybody's quiet, and everybody's looking straight ahead. And then the case gets called, and they'll say, is so-and-so versus so-and-so. One person gets up so-and-so. And right next to him was the other person. And I'm so-and-so. Do you guys talk? No. You're right next to each other. You didn't even talk about the case about, and why? Because we just, right away, we don't like each other because we're on opposite sides. And I may be a little bit exaggerating that, but someday go to civil court and check it out. And you see lawyers just don't even communicate with each other, and they write emails to each other, and they say things they would never say in person. It's one of the things we spoke about with the judges. There should be a rule in the canon of ethics that after 6 o'clock and 2 drinks, you're not to send an email to the other side. That's just I'm offering that up there. You should think about that.
So what do you think law students should do, or young lawyers should do, if they want to get into civil for whatever reason? What should they keep in mind? How should they behave?
It's not personal. It's one of your jobs as a lawyer to control your client. If your client, you deal with this a lot of probate work and the divorce action and stuff. One of the things I realize, I don't do divorce anymore. I used to do it in the beginning, but I used to always wonder, the lawyer on the other side, I used to always figure, I don't know if they were in the marriage. I wasn't quite sure because they would take it to heart, and you go, wait a minute, we're lawyers. The reason people come to us is because we know the law. And if they're smart, they come to us because we're non-emotional about it. We're representative clients, and we're arguing the law. Now, if you're emotional about your case, now you're doing your client a disservice because now you're wrapped up in emotions. And I tell you, one of the very last divorce cases, I actually addressed with a lawyer. I actually had to write him a letter, and I've always kept that letter, asking him, I wasn't sure he was part of the marriage or witnessed everything he was saying my client did. Other than that, I told him, all your phrases should say, your client's telling you my client's doing this. Don't accuse my client, and don't act like this is your wet steak. We are the professionals. We're above this. We're above the battle. We're there to counsel our clients, and we're there to control our clients. I guarantee you this, that in any divorce proceeding, whoever you hire as a lawyer, he is not going to take your spouse out there and flog them. It's not going to happen. You may think they're going to do that, but they're not going to. It's a business breakup that involves children. That's what it is. It's very basic. So then I see it. I see lawyers take on these fights, and they run. The fees are astronomical, and all this could have been settled. They just let the emotions get in the way.
Another question, you touched on it just a minute ago about fees. There are a lot of, the public who can't necessarily afford attorneys. What can be done about them, or what initiatives are being done about that?
There are. I mean, there are different legal services that help provide, but you know what? There's not enough. There's not enough. In a criminal case, you will always get appointed an attorney if you can afford one. Unfortunately, civil cases, you don't. We had a meeting with the American Bar Association. I think it was Thursday. I'm not sure. And we were talking about access to justice, civil matters. And I gave this one example. Picture a single mother in a domestic violence situation with a spouse, with a boyfriend, with a child, and all of a sudden she gets an eviction notice, and she shows up in court with a child, not knowing where she's going to stay, not knowing if her and her children are going to be safe, and not knowing where she's going to be living tomorrow. And she walks into a court, and they're all speaking a different language. And that's what access to justice is. We need lawyers to be there for those people. We need to make sure there's money by the state. In this case right now, it's for the budget. I know the budget, the House of Representatives put an extra $1 million in for this service. But lawyers should be volunteering for this. I volunteer. I started a Section 35 program. Anybody here know what Section 35 is? Okay, Section 35 is, unfortunately, because of the opiate issue out there, people have to go to courts and section the family members to force them to get into treatment. So I started a program where there's a 24-hour, 7 days a week phone number that people can call. On the other line, they will be called by an attorney. That attorney will then discuss what a Section 35 is, and that attorney will then show up in court the next day for them to help them through the Section 35. And this is all pro bono. This is something I believe that attorneys should be given back. So in those cases where people can't afford lawyers, especially when it comes out of safety, when it comes out of children, when it comes out of housing, when it comes out of sectioning people, lawyers should be given back. Listen, it's very basic, very simple. What I tell people is this. You're going to graduate law school. How many of you use the 3 L's? You're going to graduate law school. You're going to get your graduation. You're going to get your diploma. You're going to pass the bar. And it's expected that you go out there as a lawyer. It's expected that you make money. But what's respected in you is you go make a difference. And that's what's important in lawyers. Everybody thinks it's all about the money. No. Earn the respect of the communities out there. Help out.
Speaking of the Section 35, what communities are at risk? I mean,
All
I'm not
communities.
too familiar with the opiate addiction or the opiate problem.
The opiate, it used to be years ago. It was a whole different issue. Now what happened is, in everybody probably heard of OxyContin. Well, you picture this in the late 1800s. The makers of baby aspirin, the Bayer Company, invented heroin. Back at that point, they were actually prescribing heroin to people for treatments. And the government stepped in and said, stop this. People are dying. You can't prescribe it anymore, so heroin became illegal. Then come the early 1990s, and they put it in pill form. And now they prescribe it. Why they did it again, I don't know. Nobody learned, I guess, from the past, so the people dying. Well, since that, the rise in heroin use has grown. Why? You see the young people now, we live in a world of instant gratification. They don't want to go in the woods and have a couple of beers. They pop a pill. OxyContin is great. They pop it right away. They feel that feeling. Well, after stealing enough money from mom and dad and not being able to collect any money, they can't buy the $70 pill anymore. They go buy the $10 bag of heroin. And first they start snorting, and then they start shooting. And parents are sitting there watching their kids die. I know this because I represent a lot of people, but I also know this because I have a stepdaughter that's gone through it. And what happened is a Section 35 and the laws that allow family members to go to court and petition the court to grab my child or my family member and bring them in. There's warrant apprehension. They bring them in and they put them into treatment. Now, under the statute, the statute that existed for years, the Department of Public Health should have been monitoring these people. They all got a section over the number of years, but they didn't do that job. And now what's happened, it's escalated to the point where every day people are dying. To the point where, you read about Narcan, everybody knows what Narcan is, that's what they give someone that's OD'd. And there were situations people get Narcan once or twice in a weekend. Right now there's certain fire departments, when they respond to an Narcan call in the police department, they actually give out our leaflet, so that way the parents will call the number, will be able to have a lawyer for them to go to court and section the person, because what it was if you get Narcan and you get, let me go back for 1 second. Section 35 was where people are endangering themselves in the community. They can't control themselves. So what it was police departments come and Narcan you, mind you, you're dead. So I don't think there's anything higher level of showing that you're endangered yourself. But they bring you back to life, and then you could refuse treatment. Then parents didn't know what to do. So the next day we'd go into court, get a Section 35, get them picked up and put them away. It's not a comfortable feeling when you have to sit there in court and watch your loved one being brought in handcuffs. But I tell all parents that night when they get brought in handcuffs, that night when you're putting your head in the pillow, you're going to be able to sleep, because they're somewhere locked up and they're safe.
Wow. How long does that last? Once the person gets apprehended, I take it. The family's given consent to have them.
Yeah, it's supposed to be 90 days, but there aren't enough beds. And we just did one where two in the last couple of weeks. One woman, grandmother, flew up from Florida, and we had a lawyer waiting for her at Orleans Court, and she sectioned her grandson, which are not great. Another one was another woman, another grandmother had a section of grandson. And that night he walked out of the program. She was so happy she was sectioned that night she called me up. He just called me, he's at a gas station. He walked out. And so the chase was on at that point. And, it's not what lawyers do, but you go out there and you track the kid down. I tell people we practice the law, but we also have to practice humanity here.
It sounds like that's one way to take something you're passionate about, helping people, and combine it with the ability you have with a law degree, law license.
Yeah, you look at parents, again, going on the drug addiction. There were 4 steps for every parent, and the first step is denial. It's not my kid. It's my kid wouldn't do that. The second step is my kid may be dabbling in drugs, but it's not his or her fault. It's the friends that hang around. And then they realize, why my kid's doing drugs. So they say, it's my kid, I know what to do. But there's an awful 4th step, which is my kid's dying. I have no idea what to do. Somebody help me. And that's when we need the lawyers to help.
No. And are lawyers volunteering for this?
On the way down here, as a matter of fact, the lawyer just called me up. She moved in from New Jersey, and she wanted to be part of the program to help.
Wow. So it's across state lines?
No. She actually was coming. She was practicing a lawyer in New Jersey. She moved to Massachusetts.
Okay.
She read about it in the lawyer's newspaper. About the program that we. No. Go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, hold on. Let me give you the mic.
So if somebody, I'm really loud, but okay. So if somebody walks out of the drug program, so if they're brought in under Section 35 and they leave the drug program, are they then brought back to rehab? Is there a punishment involved?
Well, there's no punishment. What will happen is the program will notify the court. The court will issue another warrant for their apprehension. And the police will go get him. On this one, I waited outside the kid's house. We knew he was hiding there. And then when he popped up, just got him grabbed. It's not a normal thing for lawyers to do, but it's important. I've seen too many young kids die, so I think it's important that I'm not advocating going beyond what a lawyer should do, but I take this personally, so I do my best. Another thing, I'll tell you a funny story. In 1992, I graduated law school. I passed the bar in 1990. I took the bar the same day my daughter was born. Because I flunked the first one, I'm not going to lie to you, so I took the second one the same day my daughter was born. And to this day, she's now 26 years old, and she takes credit for it. I don't look at it that way, but she does. But again, I thought I knew everything. In my second year, I was working with another lawyer, and I'm not going to get into all details, but we had a client that barricaded himself in a house in Hingham, and Lieutenant McCracken from the Hingham Police, I can say his name because I don't like him, so I'll say it. He told me to walk into the house and try and talk him out of it, which I thought was bizarre, but I said, geez, I guess that's what lawyers do. so honestly, this was all in the paper. This was all the news. It was all this. So I guess here I am, wet behind the ears. I'm a lawyer, 22 minutes, and I'll go in, I'll talk to him out. And he made it clear he wasn't going to come out. So I said, okay, Ron, I'm leaving. I left. I went to the lieutenant, and I said, he's not coming out. They had the street blocked off, so something should have triggered that, Bob, you're in the wrong place at the wrong time. But again, I'm not the brightest bulb. And so I said, okay, I go, Lieutenant, I don't think he's going to come out. Go back in there. What? He goes, go back in there. I said, really? He goes, yes. I go, okay, I guess that's what lawyers would do. So I did. And then he held me hostage for 4 hours. They actually had to call the National Guard. So understand, I didn't know what I was doing. But actually, it was in Hingham. He had over 600 rifles in his cellar. And they had called the National Guard, the state police, and all this. And after 4 hours. People laugh because, I say, I never felt like I was in fear or anything of him. But I'll never forget one thing. This has always stuck to my mind. To this day, I won't forget it. It's called a blue terry cloth bathrobe, because that's all he had on the whole time for 4 hours. Oh. And every so often he'd go, Ron, can you do something about bathrobe? And they'd have to tie it up again, It was just, it's funny, but to this day, as a matter of fact, a few years ago, somebody gave me a blue terry cloth bathrobe as a gift, just to spark my bad memories. I think I wasn't sure. But I'll never forget. And again, brand new lawyer, didn't know what my role was, and that happened. Yeah, and then my wife's not here, so I can talk about this. I come home, and she goes, where have you been? Back then there weren't any cell phones. I said, and maybe, I'm not sure, I might have gone out to have a few after, I'm not sure. My wife goes, where have you been? I said, I was held hostage. What? She goes, what? I said, I was held hostage. You're such a liar, And honest to God, true story. And I'm going, no, I was. Get away from me, you're a liar. I go to bed. Phone rings at like 7 o'clock in the morning. The next morning, one of the guys I work with goes, are you out of your mind? I said, what? He goes, read the paper. I go downstairs, I grab the paper. There it is on the front page. I was held hostage. I go upstairs, I go, see? I was held hostage. She goes, only you. This stuff only happens to you, So, yeah, either way I lost. But, yeah.
Sounds like that was pretty...
Yeah.
Another question, though. Pardon? Oh, thank you. Another question. So, now you're president of the Massachusetts Bar Association. What's that like? What do you feel like is your responsibility now in heading the state's prestigious title?
Well, it used to be prestigious till I got it. Now I don't realize. I don't think
I didn't.
It's incredible honor. I never thought I'd do it. Pat's here. She kind of pushed me into it. She kind of made me get involved in the MassBar, and I never thought I'd ever be president of the MassBar. But I'm going to tell you, the last few years have been an incredible learning experience. I've learned more in the last few years than I have in 26 years of practice in law. I've learned to respect, not that I didn't respect it, please don't misunderstand that, but I realize the power as lawyers we have, the responsibility as lawyers we have, how people turn to us, and we represent an incredible institution. And I think and that's why when I became president, my two goals were to try and bring civility back. And we are going to have, within the next week or two, we're going to have a printout of studies, a study that was done with regards to civility and how lawyers act. That was one goal. The next goal is a Section 35 program. Those are my two goals. You can't bite off more than you can chew, and I don't think I'm going to bring the civility back that should exist, the professional back that should exist. But you know what? Every little bit helps. So it's an incredible responsibility. It's a great, great learning experience. And again, not that I didn't respect the institution, but I'm in awe of the institution now. I always respected it, but now I'm in awe of the power that we hold as lawyers.
What do you think was the most surprising thing?
I think there was that. Yeah. It was. See, I was a king in my little world in Quincy. My office was in Quincy. I knew everybody. then I realized I am nobody. I am just this little speck in this incredible world, and I've learned so much. And I was surprised all the things that we do as lawyers. I mean, it's as president of MassBar, you appoint people to sections, you know, and they come to you. I want to work in this section, that section, and half of them, you know, I want to do complex civil litigation. I thought all civil litigation was complex, but the thing is, they're telling me about parts of the law that I never even knew, never touched on, and the enthusiasm they showed for parts of the law that I had no idea even existed, let alone did.
So you mentioned sections of the law. What's going on with these different sections of the law within the MBA? What does that mean for an attorney, law student?
There's it's lawyers. They belong to a section, say the criminal justice section. They deal with the issues going on in the criminal world right now, based on recently, if anybody does criminal law, you know that a felony, larceny over $250 is a felony. Well, the section took it up to argue the fact that, you know, testify before the legislature, say the law should be much more than $250. $250 gives someone, it's a felony conviction, that's a cell phone. And, you know, unfortunately, people do steal, and that does happen. But now you plugged them with a felony, so a vote was taken to up it, you know, to make it up to like $1,500. We actually, I think, we're the second lowest in the country at $250. So they take on these issues. You know, we had the tax section took some issues with regards to filing fees, and, you know, one of the issues that also we've argued, I've testified in the legislature, is the mandatory sentence of criminal charges. Mandatory sentences just don't make sense, and they didn't make sense at the time, but they don't make sense anymore. So I was lucky enough and fortunate enough to testify for the legislature a couple of times on those. You know, and that's an ongoing battle. But if you think about criminal law, mandatory sentences just don't make sense, because you have legislators in the State House that are not aware of the facts of these particular crimes, that are not aware of what happened in this particular case, but they already put the blanket statement that the person charged with this, not this person, the person charged should serve this amount of time. They don't know anything about the facts of these certain cases. A fact finder should make a decision, not the legislature.
And in terms of the MBA, MassBar, what can students do if they, say, want to learn more or get more involved? I know you have free membership for law students.
We have free membership for law students. We also, every section has 2 seats available for law students. I made it that way so if you're interested in, say, criminal justice, there were 2 seats available for students that can attend the meetings. And it's a way to get in there and start getting, and that's the best way to find a mentor, too. I mean, think about it. If you're interested in, I'm going to say, probate law, well, now you're in a probate section. You're seeing all the other lawyers that deal with probate law. You know, through conversation, you might be someone, listen, this person seems, you know, I took a liking to this person. They seem to care, and maybe I can start calling them up and asking for advice and stuff. And that's how it develops. It's not like a date. You go up and say, hey, be my mentor, you know. But what happens is, you know, pick up the phone. That's one of the things people don't do anymore. They don't knock on doors. Maybe they're timid, whatever. Pick up the phone. You are now going to be professional. Pick up the phone and call other lawyers. I've called lawyers in the course of my years. I've called lawyers that I didn't know, but I heard they'd handle a case that may be similar to mine. So they'll call them up and listen, I got this case. My name's so-and-so. I was wondering if I could run something by you. Pick up the phone. Knock on doors. Don't be embarrassed to knock on doors.
Another question, broader question. Where do you see the legal profession going? What changes I know you said you hope to see changes, for example, Section 35, also changes in the mandatory minimum sentencing. Where do you hope to see things going? You know, we're about to embark on this profession. We have no idea what we're doing half the time. You know, what do you hope for us?
The profession is going to go in the direction, this is a very simplistic answer. It's going to go the direction the lawyers want it to go. Okay, if the more we flood the market with lawyers that don't care about the profession, the less professional this profession will be. It's very simple. You have to understand the responsibility you hold when you are an attorney. You have to understand the responsibility that comes with that title. You have to understand the power that comes with that title, and you have to respect it. And I think if lawyers do that, you're going to see a curve going up in the profession. I see if lawyers don't do it, you see it going down.
I think that's a good way to segue into, what do you think of lower bar pass rates, lower bar score,
What
So
do
we
I-
didn't get the mic out to you, but Rich asked about what's your opinion on lower bar passage rate, lower scores of the bar?
The actual low scores that are happening now, it's troublesome because it's part of the business aspect of it. There is a standard, and the standard should always exist. It's not, I guess we don't, and please don't misunderstand what I'm going to say, but we shouldn't lower standard to make sure there are lawyers out there. You know, because people rely on us. People rely, you know, they rely too much on us. And by the way, never represent family. It's not. It never works out good. I can tell you a quick story. I represent my father, and after he finally, one day I was in the shower, mind you, and he stuck his hand in with a paper and said, "Bob, can you tell me what this says?" I said, "I'm all done." Literally, and he stuck it in. What's it say? It says that you're fired. I was a client, you know. But yeah, and yeah, that was a tough one. But we should not conform to allow people to pass. I think you lower a standard at that point. I'm just troubled by that. I am. I think it's compromise and integrity of a profession. You know, I'm probably not saying the politically right thing to do, but I am telling you that I fell in love with the law when I went to see that movie, and I felt an incredible awe of the law when I got involved in MassBar and the power we hold as lawyers. You know, it's kind of, you know, think about it. Think about this. Somebody is saying, "Help me." Very few people come to lawyers because everything's going good with them.
Oh, we didn't get the mic out to Dean
So,
Gubin.
could I pass the bar we took it today? If I had to take the bar today, I'd be picking another profession. Yeah. Yeah, I'll tell you that right now. Yeah. 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 I don't think it is. I don't think it is. But I guess my opinion is, I don't want to see something lowered either. I can tell you right now, I'm not a big believer in tests, and I'll tell you why I'm not. I flunked the first bar exam I took. I fell asleep during the second one, and I passed. And I said, what was that all about? And I think back on it. I stressed myself out in the first one. The second one, the night before the first day of the exam, I spent all night in the hospital with my wife. And the second day of the exam, I fell asleep because I didn't care. I wanted to get to the hospital to see my daughter. And I sit there and I say, well, which one's the true measure of who I am? I don't think either one is, because I wasn't smarter the next time, 6 months later, but I was more relaxed, you know, and I think I psyched myself out of that first test. I was vomiting, I was losing sleep. The second one, I just didn't care. I said, I'm going to answer these questions, I want to get out of here. You know, I want to go see my daughter. So I guess I tend to agree with the fact that I don't think things should be lowered. I don't think standards should ever be changed. But I also don't think it's a right, it describes who the person is taking the test correctly either. You know, I don't, you know, years ago, the lawyers I looked up to, some of them didn't go to law school. Right? There wasn't, at one point, you didn't have to go to college to go to law school. You know? I'm sorry, they went to law school, but you didn't, I mean, back then, and yet they were very fine lawyers. So it's unfair to judge anybody, I guess, by a test. But if we do have them, we have to go by standard by them. You know? But I'm the prime example of how I don't think I was smarter 6 months later. But I passed it. You know? So it was all within me. It wasn't in here. It was just all within me.
Do we have any other questions? Okay, well, thank you very much
Well,
for
thank
coming
you.
out.
Thanks for having me.
If we could give you a round.
Well, thank you. Thanks.
Okay, that concludes our Lex Talk for the semester. Thank you.
Listen, when you go out there, try and make a difference. It's a great profession, you know, and these are the type of law schools that I went to. I wasn't a Harvard grad. I went to Harvard once, but I just drove by there, so, you know. And then the police chased me, a whole different issue, you know. But I'm going to tell you, you're going to wind up doing the type of work that I love. You're going to be fighting the battles, you know. I could never picture myself sitting behind a desk. Nothing like the courtroom, you know. So keep it up, please. All right? Thanks.